Republicans yesterday, Thune and Johnson, who seem to have a very good relationship at the White House, made an agreement. They're going to try to raise the debt ceiling within the reconciliation process. That will lose some votes, but I think on balance, from people I talk to, it's certainly the best of the options. Sean, is this a good idea? And what's the plan B if it doesn't work?
Generally, there isn't a plan B.
Yeah.
This is the plan. And I think there has to be, because they recognize that the ship already sailed on trying to get something through before. And now they either do it in the context of reconciliation, or Democrats are going to have a vehicle to get something for, right? And that's the problem. They know that they have gone with the go it alone strategy, and they're stuck with it.
Dan.
Yep. Congress lives by deadlines. This is the ultimate deadline. No one wants to default. It'll force action.
It will.
I will say it will be interesting to see how Andy Harris and the Freedom Caucus come out. They've been on board so far. And well, look, and the one thing I noted, April 1st, you pick up 2 more Republican votes in the House, presumably. And that's gonna, if you lose 1 or 2, it's not helpful, but
I've been thinking about this all morning. I don't really know what my final thought on it is, but it is a forcing mechanism. It is an absolute deadline, but it's a deadline that some Republicans in Congress don't take seriously. Some of them say, great, we can default, doesn't matter. And it also is a deadline that's not specific. As I said earlier in the program, it could be July or it could be November. So they'll have to have the Treasury Secretary work with them to really understand what the deadline is, to kind of back time to the deadline, so they don't go over the cliff because they don't know exactly when it is.
Well,
right?
They're gonna believe him more, right? So I mean, to your point, it's called extraordinary measures that they can use, and you're going to believe your own team more than the other team, just by nature. The other thing that's going to be fascinating is that this is all predicated.
Sorry, just on that. Okay, I understand what you're saying. You're going to believe your own team. So he says it's September 1, right? I run out of extraordinary measures, or I'm not going to exercise extraordinary measures, because the extraordinary measures have costs to them, right? You can say that's the deadline, but deadlines involve a game of chicken, even with your own team. So I say, okay, it's September 1, and there's no deal by September 1. Well, then he can say, oh, I just found some nickels in the cushions at the Treasury Department. It's actually September 10th. That's why I worry about them for this deadline. It's not a hard deadline. It's so fungible, not just not predictable, but fungible by the Treasury Secretary.
Correct. But it's also, I mean, part of that fungibility is going to be predicated on what comes in April. In terms of tax revenue. And that's huge, right? So if you come in less, I mean, this is where April 15th is going to be a big day for the Trump administration, because if you come in short of projections as far as what you brought, that either opens or closes your window. But I will say that President Trump is going to say to his guys, hey, listen, if I give you a deadline, I don't need to find out if we're wrong on September 2nd if I say it's September 1st. Like, don't screw with it. There's a little difference here. I think Trump's got a lot more hammer.
In some ways it's better. In some ways it's better. In some ways it's worse. And Sean, I'm sorry if I interrupted and you still had a second point.
Nope.
Okay, Dan.
I mean, I agree. It's a deadline. I do not think anything of the House guys. There is no way Andy Harris goes toe to toe with Donald Trump and MAGA if this is what it comes down to. The Senate is a little more interesting because people have longer leashes, but I think they'll end up ramming this through unless they hit $8 trillion in tax cuts. I think the only thing really to watch is, can they get away with saying that extending the Trump tax cuts cost nothing? I mean, it's a total BS, but if they get away with it.
It's going to be our own. It's going to be the Republicans that call them out on that, right?
I agree.
You're not, they don't have to, like, this is where they're going to have their own problem.